Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I'm getting ready to really start to work on my Oracle deck, and I want to show a little bit more of the whole process of that than I did with my Lenormand deck. And so there's a lot of work that goes into doing an Oracle deck or any kind of deck. Before you even get around to actually being able to paint a deck. And so what you're seeing here is my little bit messy art desk at the moment. It definitely has been used and abused over the last few days as I start to do the prep work. And I put some pictures up on Instagram, and a couple people had some questions. I thought I would just do a quick video, as I'm going to be putting out videos of cards and some paint, but in some time-lapse videos of actually making the decks or the cards and these kinds of things. But before you can get to the fun part, right, of painting, there's a lot of work that's involved, or maybe I should say I think that should probably be involved, because I think the more prep work that you do beforehand, the more you can just roll right into doing the work of creating the cards. And so one of the first things that I did before I even sat down at my art table was to sit down with my brain and start to really think about, and I don't know, I'm just as a new camera, and at the moment it's going to end up being able to go over my art table better, but I'm waiting for an arm to be able to do that, so I'm not sure how well you can see that, to be honest. But if you follow my channel for very long, you know that I have a love, not hate, that's a strong word. I have a push-pull with Oracle decks, because I do like there to be structure. And so when I went to paint my Lenormand deck, so I have a Lenormand deck, which is Story in Color Lenormand. And before, when I was going to paint that, obviously the structure's already in place. There are 36 cards. These are the titles of the cards, and this is what the cards mean, and all I had to do was sit down and paint them. So then when I decided, I'm going to do an Oracle deck that will at least be compatible in terms of look-wise, not be the exact same thing, but being compatible with it, compatible with the deck, it just wasn't rolling, and it just wasn't rolling. I've done a few of the cards. I've kind of gotten a feel for what I was looking for and started to play around with some things. I knew that there were going to be animals involved, and I thought I might wanted to use some prints, but then I was having trouble with the masking fluid. I knew that I wanted the seasons to be represented, and so I kind of worked on those. So I just did some preliminary things and thought I would just start to roll like I did with my Lenormand deck, but it wasn't. And I finally realized that the reason that it wasn't is because I really didn't have any structure to follow. And so I realized that what I needed to do was sit down with the deck and map the whole thing out. And so that's what I did, is really sat down first. I knew there were certain things that I wanted. I knew that I wanted it based on the 4 elements. I knew I wanted animals in it, but at one time it was going to be a lot more animals plus some other things. But I was like, how do I structure this so that I don't have a 300 card deck, but still has something to offer? And I'm still working through all of that. This is a deck that is much more in alignment with my own personal practice. What are the things that are important to me? So, it's important to me to have a web card, which I have, which I'll probably redo, the upper, middle, and lower worlds, the directions, these types of the elements themselves, how the elements move, the movement of the sun across the wheel of the year, the movement of the moon in the different phases, these kinds of things. So the idea of cycles and elements, and the way that energy moves and flows in our world, I knew was important to me. So, I really sat down with the structure of the deck. As it stands right now, I have 73 cards. There are 3 that are questionable, but I'm guessing it's going to be 70 cards, 70 to 73 cards. Because by the time you're at 70, what does it matter? 3 more, right? And it will be tarot card size because of that, that way. And there are oracle decks that are up there in that size range, and they generally are tarot sized. And so I'm just not worrying about it. I'm going to make the deck that I want to make, and that'll be okay. But my point is I think that even if you're doing sort of a thematic oracle, I think that you can tell the difference in decks when that sort of work beforehand to really structure the deck. Are there keywords that are overlapping, that are being said the same time, same thing multiple ways? Is the structure, working together, not fighting against each other, that kind of thing. I think that when you can tell when that pre-work has gone into something. Now, tarot, it's a little easier because the structure is in place, right? Same thing with Lenormand, the structure's in place. Whereas something like an oracle, where it can pretty much be anything, I think that's where it's so important to do the work ahead of time. But even in something like a tarot deck or a Lenormand deck, you still want to make sure, are things, being cohesive as you're going along, all kinds of things. So that was step 1, was really sitting down. What are the cards that I really want to have? What do those cards mean to me? What is it? If I could pick one word, keyword, what would that mean? And start to kind of flesh out and figure out where I'm going, because then I can start painting because I know my structure is in place. So that was step 1 that I did earlier in the week. And then, because I've gotten a lot of different paints since I did my Lenormand deck, I replenished my paints and then kind of went with some different companies. It was time to organize my paints. And so that's what I've been doing this week. I had seen a palette, which is really cool, and I will put a link to it in the description box below because it was the inspiration behind this, but it was a palette that was rotating and you could buy all kinds of covers and things like that. But by the time I was done, if I would have gotten it to do, I think around, well, this right now is 69, but obviously I have more room to put more paints in there. This right now has 69 paint colors in here. And I think the other may have been 77 because they were smaller wells. It was at least, the minimum was like 108 plus shipping. And then if I did it exactly how I would have wanted it, it would have been like $150 for this palette. Now, trust me, if you're a professional artist or if you're a hobbyist and just, love to have lots and lots of paints and love to see them all, more power to you. But I was thinking to myself, I'd rather buy paint with that. That's what I was thinking. So I thought, there must be some way for me to do this for cheaper than that, and that would work for my space. And so that's when I headed over to the to Bed Bath & Beyond and kind of looked around there to try to find the Lazy Susan. We call these Lazy Susans in the United States. I'm sure there's other names for them, but it's just a tray that's on a bearing so that it can spin. And they had this bamboo one on clearance for $15. It's, I think, 16 inches. The one I think that I was looking at, that was the professional palette, was like 15 inches. And I had already measured out my desk because I actually have a few inches here to the wall. And so this can actually hang over it. I'd kind of measured the space out from what I had before, and being able to put these here, I wasn't losing any more desk space, even though I know it looks like it. So anyways, I found this, and then I found different things to be able to stick on to here to put my paints in. And I ended up looking in the beading section of a craft store and could get a pack of 25 of these little containers for to hold beads in it if you collect beads. And that's what I ended up getting and using. One of these you can see has its lid on it because this is gouache. You don't use white watercolor paint because it doesn't really do anything. Most people who paint watercolor don't use white, but white gouache is wonderful because gouache is much more opaque, and you can go back in and add highlights with gouache. You can also, you see like a starry field, and then see flicks of white on it. Of course, I have one of those, but it's probably not one that I pulled out. Yeah, so like you can see a little white here over the black. That's made with white gouache. And so I don't like that to dry out. And so that I was able to actually keep the lid on, which is really awesome. So that's what I've been doing, but then it was like organizing them, by color groupings, because I just wanted to be able to, okay, here's all my earth tones. Okay, there's all my earth tones. Okay, here's all my reds. Here's all my yellows. Here's all my greens and turquoises and blues and blacks and neutrally things. And so getting it all organized, painting the swatches on this so that this actually can set over the top of all of this and lay on top of there to keep dust out when I'm not actively painting and working. And so then I also have, I don't know if you can see that in the viewfinder, but I just put a couple tacks up so I could hang it on the wall. So that was quite, that was quite a chore, shall we say. And so I did that, got that done, I think yesterday, finished that. And then I wanted to, because there's a lot of cards, there's 70 to 73 cards in the deck, and most of them are in groupings. So for example, there is a grouping of web cards that has the idea of the web, the idea of a special concept of mine of the third road, the upper and the middle lower realms. There's a set of directional cards, a set of element cards, a set of movement cards. So there are sets within the bigger structure, and I don't necessarily know that I would paint them all exactly together. I really want to make sure that I kind of keep notes on what paints that I use and paint swatches and that kind of thing. So I had gotten these a while back just for as a journal, but hadn't done anything with an art journal, but I hadn't done anything with them. As you can see, this was with watercolor pencils, a poppy. There was I think some other swatches I just cut out because they weren't going to be appropriate. So today I sat down and all of those paints that are on this wheel, listed them out, clearly what their name is, a nice clean swatch, and as well as I numbered these containers, and so I put the number of the container of where they are here. So I have a real compact visual of the colors that I have, and these are some extra colors that are not on this wheel that I have. So there were some Holbein colors that were just brighter than I needed, or for whatever reason. So, one was a hue, it wasn't an actual full pigment, so I didn't put that in. I had quite a few burnt sienna, so I didn't put this burnt sienna light. These types of, just some reason, I had so many to put in, and these got ruled out for whatever reason. I chose to rule those out, but I did want to leave room, and I will leave more room just for additional paints. But then I can go into kind of taking notes, kind of doing some sketching if I want to do some test looks at what certain washes might look like. That's all going to go in this larger, like I'm going to be working on skin tones, not for the deck, but for drawing a painting that I want to make. I might do some work with different mixes of skin tones and that type of thing. So that is what I set up today. And then I had this little one, and these are Stillman and Byrne books. Now, I really did a lot of research into sketchbooks to try to find what I wanted and what was available, and they have these near me. And you can see I was obviously still working on poppies. This was something else. I can't remember what this was, because I erased, I think, what it was, but this was like watercolor markers, I think, that I was testing out, but that's the only thing that's in there. So I'm going to use, and I'll need to get another one of these because there's not enough pages, but these I'm going to have a one page for each card, and that way I can actually swatch out the colors, swatch out any mixes that I do, and so that when I'm done with a painting, I kind of have some notes on that particular painting, so that if I go back later and want to make a card that goes along with it, and I want to know what are the color components that I use, so I could maybe use those similarly, whatever, just take notes on each of the. I wish I had done that for my Lenormand deck, and so I'm going to do that with this, and it's a great size for it as well. And even before I even start painting, I can jot down ideas that I have as well, even before I start to paint, as I start to map out what I see things looking like. So I need to pick up another one of these because that will not be enough for my deck. But so that's kind of that, again, prep work that I'm getting set to, because I do believe that the more kind of mental work and pre-setting things up work, I've gone through, I have a lot of different brushes, but I've kind of gone through, I have my good, these are my really good brushes, and these are the brushes that I use the most here. And then these are other brushes that I do use. There's more specialty brushes, or, scrubbing brushes, or things that I don't use as much, but I do use these. So I have those ready. I have a white Uniball, which is again nice for adding highlight back in if you've lost it. Masking fluid pens here. I broke my good pencil that I use, but that, a sketching pencil will be there. I got a new moldable eraser. So, and my absolute favorite ever spritz bottle, which is from Hobby Lobby. It's called Master's Touch Ultrafine Mist Sprayer. I love this thing. Absolutely love it. So much so that I probably will go get another one because I would not want to be able to have it, because it's such a fine mist. And it will also kind of push the thing, and then it keeps spraying. I don't think, it doesn't always do it. I'm sure there's a trick to it. If I do this, I'm going to make a mess. No. But it's just a really fine mist, and I love it. I love it for wetting down paper. It's just, I love it. So that's here. So I kind of have this is a palette knife for acrylic painting, which needs to go in my acrylic paints. But I've just kind of tightened up and this is all from doing the swatches today, which still needs to be cleaned up. I don't know if you can see over here. These are all watercolor. I still need to do some more tightening up over here. This is my heat gun, best thing I ever purchased for $10 with a coupon. Everything I buy is with a coupon. Some just random glue that I need to put away. Most of this is all watercolor pencils, which I have a chart up of here, and I do use these because these have a wonderful benefit of staying in place. They're watercolor, and when you activate them, the water moves the pigment around, but once it dries, it then is stable. So then you can paint around it, and you're not going to actually lift up that paint again. So there's great reasons for that. Generally, that's just watercolor brushes or pencils. So tightening all this up means that once I sit down to paint, which is now coming very close to being time, the next thing, the final thing that I need to do prep work wise, I am a huge fan of Arches watercolor paper. This is 300 grams or 140 pounds pure cotton paper. This is what I painted my Lenormand deck on. And I need to go through and cut out a bunch of Oracle size, the size of the cards that I am painting, which obviously are right here, but I don't have any more of them. So I need to go through and cut a bunch of them out so that that's what I did with my Lenormand. I had a stack ready to go, and then I could simply grab from the next step and then just start to roll with painting. And so this is what prep work for an oracle deck in my my apartment looks like. But I'm really thrilled. I've done some swatching and things with this, as well as a couple little paintings, just kind of testing out, and it works amazingly. I love having access to all my colors. You really only need, 12 to 14 pans to mix all the colors that you could possibly need. But I have learned about myself, I do love having color. I'm actually inspired by the colors that are in front of me, and that's part of I enjoy it. So everybody's different in how they approach paint. Some people just literally have 12 colors and that's all they need. And I do have mixing palettes as well, but I've just learned that I really am inspired and I react to color being around me and having access to color. And so instead of fighting that and having them pushed away in drawers, here they are. So I don't know if this is going to be of interest to anybody. If you're interested, my paints are almost entirely Daniel Smith paints, watercolor paints. The ones that are in half pans are Holbein watercolor paints, which I love. Daniel Smith I love because of their granulation. They make beautiful textures in the paint. The way that the paint reacts to water and dries makes amazing textures, and that's one of the things that I adore about Daniel Smith paints. Holbein's I love for the opposite. There is a smoothness and a not that any of their paints don't granulate, because there are some things like ultramarine blue that are always going to granulate, but they are just these smooth, intense colors. And that's another thing for a watercolorist. Usually you think of intense colors more along the lines often of, say, acrylic painting, where you think of watercolors as more softer. I actually like intense colors, even though I like the way that watercolor moves and it creates, kind of is organic because of the way that it works with water. I also like high intensity. And so Holbein gives that color punch that's just absolutely amazing. And then I've just recently gotten some Core QOR. They have a high chroma set of bold intensity, and those have blown me out of the water. So I just have like 6 of those, and I think I have 6 M-grams that I'm testing out as well. But primarily, all of these are Daniel Smith or Holbein's. So some people ask, so I thought, oh, I'll put that in there. Absolute favorite brush of all time, at least at the moment, is this one, which is a Princeton Neptune quill brush. Now, the interesting thing is that this is a more expensive quill brush, which is a number 2 Da Vinci, and this is okay. I'm glad I have it. This cost more than this one, which this was about, I think right now you can get them for $18. I feel like I paid more, like right around $20. So $18 to $20, probably one of my more expensive brushes. But this is my absolute favorite brush of all time. I feel like if I could, this brand doesn't make quill brushes smaller than this. And I wish they did, because I would own them all. But that's my absolute favorite brush. It makes such a fine point, but then it also holds so much water. For somebody like me that does a lot of washes of color, this is just amazing. And I just love this. Is one of my absolute favorite brushes. But for Christmas, I got a good chunk of these silver black velvet brushes, which had been really recommended, and I love these especially in terms of the round brushes. I think these are absolutely amazing. I do need to get a 0. I kind of just got gradations of sizes of rounds, which is generally what you use, and then a dagger. I think it's called a striper, but they're generally called a dagger, which makes great leaf shapes and things. So these are definitely just in terms of these are not cheap brushes, and you don't need super expensive brushes, but And these aren't super expensive, but they're definitely more high-end than what I was using before, and I do quite love them. That was a great Christmas present. But yeah, these Princeton Neptunes, I actually really like this brand. I don't know where I got this one. I obviously got it from a store. But anyways, I do really love those. And then these are just some other ones that I just like because this is the fan brush. Cheap fan brush is nice to have. I also really love to have little square size shapes. There's another one. These are over here because they're wet. But I do like to have these for feathers. This little one is amazing for feathers. This is another. No, this is not. I thought maybe this is a Princeton. It looks like it. This little teeny square one, a number 2 flat, is amazing for feathers. As well as this number 6 flat. So yeah. Anyways, I love these also, these little random ones where they're cut like this. It just makes for nice odd shapes. And another little dagger brush. I like that dagger shape too, but generally I use round brushes. So that's, I think, causing me to have to probably do a lot more editing to this video than I intended to ramble on. But you can kind of see a little bit of the prep work that goes into then being ready to sit down and start painting a deck. And you will be seeing more videos on my channel about that, in the midst of creating the deck. And so I thought I would just do this sort of, okay, this is the work, the pre-work. That's not as glamorous as painting, but I think is just as important. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.